The story kicks off with a guy living the most boring life imaginable, stuck in a loop of the same old commute, the same old job, and the same old trip home, and while it's supposed to be comforting, he feels a deep longing for something different, something out of the ordinary. Just then, a mysterious figure appears and asks him, "Hey there," which totally startles the guy, who asks who he is. The stranger explains that he's the one who oversees the solar system, which makes the guy guess he's an alien. The being says it's closer to a god, really, and tells him to think of him as middle management for the universe. This description makes the god seem much more down to earth, and the being continues his explanation. He says that no matter how much he tweaks a planet called Medius, things always go wrong and civilizations keep collapsing, so now he has to step in. He describes his plan, saying he will drop a single bead into that world, hoping the ripple will swell into a wave big enough to change everything. He then points to the guy and tells him that he'll become that single bead. The guy is completely shocked and says you can't just spring something like that on him, but the god casually informs him that he's already died. He explains that if he doesn't go to Medius, his soul will just fade away. This news hits the guy like a ton of bricks, and he yells about how the god can just drop that bomb on him so casually. The god reassures him that he won't be sent there empty-handed and offers to grant him gifts, whatever he wishes for, calling them special abilities. The guy is confused and asks what he means by gifts, so the god suggests the power to use magic, which piques his interest. The god grants him extreme magical potential and asks if there's anything else he wants. The guy, still processing, blurts out that he wants a cute partner. The god agrees, saying when the time comes, he'll meet her. He then throws in a bunch of other skills, boosting his scouting abilities because gathering materials can be sold for money, and gives him a handy bag to store everything he collects. The god also adds in the world's language and various resistances as a bonus. As all these powers are being poured into him, the guy's body starts to glow, and he freaks out. The god realizes it's almost time and, after a quick check, admits that maybe he gave him a little too much. He then makes a cryptic comment about the partner, hoping that will be okay, which makes the guy even more. The god tries to brush it off, saying he'll be fine. But he says it twice, which only fuels the guy's bad feeling about the whole situation as he wakes up in a new world, and his first thought is to find where people live. He spots a settlement in the distance, but realizes that showing up penniless won't even get him a meal. He remembers the god boosting his scouting skills for gathering materials, so he decides to try it out. He shouts, activates scouting magic, but nothing happens. After a few failed attempts with words like scouting and looking, he tries search, and suddenly, glowing spots appear all around him. He figures out that these are the locations of materials and that the magic activates with the right command word. He then experiments to see if he can get more details and tries scan on a plant, which works perfectly, identifying it as a rank B moonlit herb. Thrilled with his awesome new magic, he starts gathering everything that's glowing, collecting acani mushrooms and eprar leaves, though most of it is. He then spots a beautiful stone and scans it, only to find out it's hammer anteater droppings, which is basically high-ranked poop. He figures out that tradable materials show up with icons that he can track with his scouting magic. With a decent haul, he decides to head to the village before sunset. There, he meets a tall man from the village watch named Marlowe, who notes that a material gathering specialist is a rare sight. Marlowe tells him his name is Takaru and directs him to the general store since they don't have a dedicated materials shop. Takaru goes to the store and shows the shopkeeper his collection. The shopkeeper is immediately amazed by the hammer anteater droppings, praising their exceptional shape, strength, and color. He offers 5 silver coins for it, but Takaru has no idea about the local currency, so he asks how much a night at an inn costs. He learns it's 500 rave per night, and that 1 silver coin. Doing some quick mental math, he realizes the poop is worth the equivalent of 50,000 yen, and quickly agrees to the deal. The shopkeeper is so happy he starts rubbing the droppings on his cheek, and Takeru has to remind him that it's poop. The shopkeeper then asks to see everything else, and he's incredibly impressed by the haul. He asks why Takeru brought it all to a backwater village, and Takeru explains he's been traveling and collecting materials. The shopkeeper then offers him a job to collect some misral ore from the eastern mountain. Takeru agrees and sells all his materials for a whopping 360,000 rave, which he calculates is like $3 million. He's ecstatic until the shopkeeper casually mentions there are monsters up on the mountain. Later at the inn, Takeru is relaxing but desperate for a bath. The inn staff brings him some hot water for 30 rave, but it's just a small bucket for wiping himself down. He asks about a proper bath, but he's told only nobles have those. He learns that some mages can clean people with magic, which gives him an idea. He thanks the staff, giving them a huge tip, and then experiments with his own magic. After trying a few words, he shouts, "Clean!" and a wave of magic washes over him, making him spotless. While it's convenient, he still feels unsatisfied as a bath. The next day, he heads out and finds a collapsed security corps member. He can't just walk away, so he sets up a magical barrier and uses ingredients he has and some wild greens to cook up a special meat soup for the man. He then enters the Forest of White Trees, also known as the Forest of Ancient Dragons, a dangerous zone where monsters are rampant. He finds it strangely silent with no living things around and jokes that maybe it's because he smells bad. He uses his magic to look for ore and eventually finds a cave. Inside, he uses blaze and eruption spells to blast his way through and finally finds some mithril ore, but it's a very small. An earthquake starts, but he decides to push deeper into the cave. He discovers a massive underground lake with water so clear he's never seen anything. He uses scan and is shocked to find it's rank SSU underground magic. Water from the lair of an ancient dragon. He realizes the dragon's mana must be in the water, meaning one must have lived there. Just as he's about to taste the water, a powerful voice demands to know who dares awaken it from its slumber. Takeru is startled, but then the ancient dragon, Voldius, appears. Instead of panicking, Takeru uses his customer service skills from his old job and bows deeply, apologizing for trespassing. Voldius is impressed by his steady nerves and senses overwhelming magic power pouring from him, which is what woke the dragon up. Voldius explains that he needs Takeru's pure power to revive his child, as the stagnant, tainted mana in the area is preventing the egg from hatching. As a reward, he offers magic mithril ore. Takeru agrees and is shown a gigantic egg. Voldius tells him to pour his magic into it, so Takeru decides to try warming it up with a heat spell. The magic goes out of control, causing a massive energy surge. Suddenly, Takeru is pulled into a strange void where another god-like being appears. This new god complains that Takeru is already spreading ripples everywhere and messing with the world he's been tinkering with for hundreds of thousands of years. Annoyed by the ridiculous blessing the first god gave him, this new being decides to thin it out a bit to make things more interesting. He also reminds Takeru that he's the one who wished for a cute partner before sending him back. Takeru's vision clears, and he's back in the cave with Voldius. He hears a pewy sound and sees that the egg has hatched into a small black dragon. The baby dragon chirps at him, and Voldius asks him to give it an alias. Takeru thinks for a moment and suggests B for Black, which the hatchling seems to like. Voldius declares it a fine name, B for Black Voldius, and tells his child to roam the vast world to its heart's content. A system message appears, announcing that the ancient dragon hatchling, B for Black, has joined Takeru's party. Takeru is in disbelief, asking Voldius if he's really entrusting his newborn child to a complete nobody like him. Voldius states that, with power greater than his own, he can trust Takeru with. The baby dragon starts licking and biting him playfully, and Takeru complains that it smells fishy. Accepting his new fate, Takeru asks B if it wants to join him on a material gathering journey. B chirps excitedly, and Takeru declares their new partnership settled. But before they head off, he has one last thing to do and casts his clean magic on the smelly but adorable baby dragon. Takeru and his new partner B are finally out of the cave. He tells B it's its first time outside and decides they should camp for the night since it's getting dark and he's hungry. He sets up camp and pulls out some water, explaining that the great dragon Mr. Vol used magic to connect his item box to a special underground lake. The water is highly concentrated with magic elements from the ancient dragon, which is essential for a dragon cub's growth, though it's also drinkable for Takeru. B drinks a lot of it, and Takeru tells it to have as much as it wants, since it now has free access to the magic water it needs. B then nudges him, wanting him to drink too. Takeru tries it and finds it nice and easy to drink. He then decides to make a fire, But instead of using wood, he just activates a skill and easily creates a heating magic stone, thinking about how precious these stones are supposed to be in this world. He starts cooking up his special meat stew, which looks delicious. He says he could eat it 5 times more, it's that good. B wants to try some too, and Takeru worries if it will get a stomachache, but he lets it have a taste, warning it to be careful because it's hot. B ignores the warning and burns its mouth a little, which makes Takeru scold it playfully. After they eat, Takeru is just happy that his new traveling partner can eat the same food as him, so it won't be lonely just drinking water. He asks B if it feels lonely being separated from its parent, but B just nuzzles him, and he takes this to mean it's fine as long as it has him, calling it the cutest. He looks over B's stats and is blown away. The little thing is already rank B, and has insane gifts like Ancient Dragon's Blessing and Limitless Evolution. Takeru realizes that even though B is so small and cute, it's incredibly powerful. But he reminds himself that B is just a kid and needs a proper upbringing. He tries to lecture it, telling it that even if it's stronger than him, it must never do anything reckless, because he'd be the one to get a scolding from Mr. 5. Vol if anything happened. But B just falls asleep without a care in the world. Takeru sighs, remembering he asked for a cute partner but never expected a reptile, and wonders if the god did this to him on purpose. The next morning, the forest looks completely different. It's bright and way less creepy than the day before. Takeru figures it's just one of those magical forest things in an isekai and decides to do some gathering. He activates his search skill to find any rank C materials he can grab. He finds all sorts of new herbs, but then B suddenly gets agitated. Takeru expands his search to look for ferocious monsters and realizes what's going on. Before, monsters stayed away because of his smell from the cave, but now that he's clean, they're coming for him. He's not too worried though, since fighting monsters means he can get some good materials. A huge rock falcon attacks, a ferocious carnivorous bird. His scan tells him its meat is sweet and delicious, so he stops seeing it as a monster and starts seeing it as a flying ingredient. He calmly puts up a shield to block its attack and then launches an ice needle, taking it down instantly. He tells the dead monster that he doesn't do needless killing, but since it was hunting them, they'll hunt it back to live. Just as he collects the meat, 6 more monsters appear, ferocious serpent wolves. Takeru buffs himself up, casting quick to raise his speed and reduction to make his body lighter. He dodges their attacks and then casts hard on his hands and feet, turning them into weapons. He punches and kicks his way through the pack, taking them all down one by one. But more monsters keep coming, and he realizes he can't keep fighting his way out of the entire forest. Just as he's getting overwhelmed, B steps in. It grabs him and starts flying straight up. Takeru is shocked by its strength, but helps out by casting reduction on himself. B flies higher and higher at an insane speed. When they finally land, Takeru is dizzy and covered in something stinky but is alive. He looks around and realizes they're right back where they camped the previous night. He can't believe how fast B flew. He thanks it for helping him out, but asks it to hold back a little next time since he's only human. B just chirps happily, ready to do it again. Now that they're safe, he checks his map and sees they're about a day's walk from Tormi village. While they walk, B gets curious about a branch in Takeru's bag. He shows it the Yggdrasil branch, explaining it's from a famous legendary tree, but is currently asleep. B suddenly breathes on it, and the branch awakens, glowing with power. Takeru is totally confused, wondering what a gatherer is supposed to do with a magic staff, and worrying it will make people think he's a sorcerer. Suddenly, B senses something and runs off. Takeru follows and finds a collapsed elf. He assumes she was attacked by a monster, but then he hears a loud rumbling sound coming from her stomach. She weakly tells him she hasn't eaten in 3 days. Takeru gives her some water and then offers her the special lunchbox he got from the innkeeper. The elf girl devours the food, calling it divine, and saying she feels like she's about to ascend to heaven. Takeru thinks anything would taste that good if you were starving. He asks her how she ran out of food when the village isn't that far, and she mumbles that she was in a hurry. He then bluntly tells her that she stinks like manure, completely shattering his image of elves smelling like a spring breeze. The elf is horrified and yells that he can't just say that. She explains she had no choice because she was camping for days. She thanks him for the food but says calling someone stinky is too rude, and she storms off in a huff. After that strange encounter, Takeru and B finally reach the edge of the forest. B spots a carriage in the distance. Takeru approaches it and meets a family on their way to Tormi village. The father, Polan, and mother, Eliza, offer him a ride. Takeru is hesitant because of his large size, but their kids, Yunan and Kane, get excited and call him a big, funny mister, inviting him to sit with them. Takeru notes how kids in this world seem to like him, which makes the adults less wary. He gets on, and Eliza tells him that the people of Tormi always help each other. Takeru asks if they're not worried he could be a bandit, but the kids show him a magic bell that would have rung if he were a bad person. They all introduce themselves, and then the kids hear a noise from Takeru's bag. They want to see what's inside, and since Eliza says adventurers often have monster companions, Takeru decides to show them. He brings Albi, telling it not to bite or make a racket. The kids immediately fall in love with it, calling it cute. Eliza is shocked and asks if it's a dragon cub. Takeru says it's a black dragon cub, carefully leaving out the ancient part. This leads them to ask if he's a dragon knight. He explains he just found an egg and hatched it, which shocks them even more. With a dragon on board, the family feels completely safe. When it's time for dinner, Takeru offers to cook. He pulls out all his cooking gear and ingredients from his item box, which makes the kids think he's a sorcerer. He whips up a huge feast of meat stew, steak, and salad. Everyone is blown away by how delicious it is. Pollen even starts crying tears of joy, explaining that they've been eating nothing but dried meat on their journey, and he's just so happy to see his children enjoying such a wonderful meal. The kids are so impressed they declare Takeru is a mage of magical taste. Takeru reflects on this moment, realizing that sharing a meal and laughing with others is something he never experienced back on Earth. For the first time, he feels like he can truly smile from the bottom of his heart.